This is John Martinka, and welcome to the Getting the Deal Done podcast. My special guest today is Latanya Roberts. Latanya is based in Atlanta. She is a fractional COO, and we're going to talk about what she has done to help her clients over the years. She has about 20 years experience. She started out with Deloitte and Booz Allen, broke off on her own, works internationally, has worked with people in 30 or more countries. Uh, and Latanya, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, as you said, I've been doing this for about 20 years, starting with some of the bigger consulting firms with strategic planning, process improvement. And then I later moved on to more of the human side of it. So working in HR, change management, technology adoption projects. And what I realized is that I like the people side of the house. And when I thought about moving out on my own, it looked like operations. So I partnered with a small consulting firm when I branched out about 5 years ago and became the COO of that company.
Okay. Um, what do you like to do when you're not doing COO process improvement and similar work?
Sure. So, of course, spending time with my family, traveling, and I'm also involved in real estate investing.
Okay. Does that keep you pretty balanced?
It does. It does. It gives me a chance to take not only what I've learned and what I do on the operations side, apply it to real estate investing, and the travel and time with my family is that self-care time and
Yeah.
downtime that I need to recoup.
Okay. So, talk to us about what a fractional COO does, the type of businesses you like to work with, the size of businesses, all of that.
Sure. So I primarily work across different industries, businesses of all sizes. I work with a lot of smaller consulting firms right now. But what I do is I partner with that CEO to bring their vision to life. And so we work on things like their strategic plans, going out for a year, quarterly, monthly, et cetera. I'm helping them to streamline and automate their processes using different tools. And I am also working with their team members, so helping them to figure out how they need to grow their team, how they can scale up their business using their proven processes, and then just really trying to take away some of those repetitive tasks and make sure that they are operating as efficiently as possible. And then the other thing that I help them out is building out their business. So I am heavily involved in their business development activities.
Okay. So, give us an example of company you worked with, what you did, what the results were, the OK study of situation intervention results.
Sure. So I'll start with when I left Deloitte and I partnered with the smaller consulting firm, came on as a contractor at first. And this was a company that was looking to scale. So it was a one team member partnered with other consultants to kind of grow the business and go after bigger companies. What I did with this person was we developed their goals, we developed their key performance indicators, and then their go to market strategy. So, what companies would she go after? What processes she would put in place in terms of how do we sell the business? How do we market the services? And then when we talk about delivery, in this case, HR services, training, strategy, what are those processes that we would put in place in order to deliver quality services? And putting that structure together and working with someone who is more of the visionary, think big picture, doesn't necessarily care about the details, we were able to create a system where we had repeat services, and that actually allowed her to 4x her business because she got a lot of referrals.
Okay. All right. So, what are you seeing out there now is, we're constantly changing environment in
Mm-hmm.
business in the world. Uh, what's going on lately?
Well, right now, if we think about the people side of the house, I did a lot of time with human capital or HR consulting. Right now, with all of the changes that are going on, people are scared about their jobs. right? Not only from what's going on with our government, but also through the integration of AI and how prevalent it has been lately. So, one of the things that I am working with clients on is how do you not necessarily replace your team members, but how do you maximize their productivity by leveraging AI to do, again, those repetitive tasks faster in a more streamlined way so that they can use the people for those things that only humans can actually do. So, you want to think about your critical thinking, your strategic planning, some of your innovative tasks, working directly with your customers. People like to talk to other people and not necessarily a bot. So, how can we use them to do more of that and then use the technology to do what it can do?
When you work with a company as CEO and they're working with their teams, uh, what's the reception to that from the team members, from the CEO? Uh, do they jump into AI and say, "Hey, let's roll as fast as we can with it," or is there
Well,
pushback?
no, I think there's a natural curiosity about AI. And I think people are more receptive now because people are using it on their own terms outside of work, right? So they're using it to plan their meals or just use it as a brainstorming partner. So I think people are a lot more receptive and they're curious about how it can actually help them do their work faster and better, to be honest. So I haven't had a lot of pushback. Where the curiosity comes, or maybe some of the anxiety is, will AI completely replace me on the job? And the answer in most times is no. It's there to support you in your role.
Okay. So what are some of the best uses of AI that you've seen?
Sure. So when we think about our service providers, one of the things that we can do is create, if you're using Open AI or Chat, is create a GPT for some of those repetitive tasks like your content creation, even your proposal development, different writing services. I've created a GPT that does a comparative analysis on your different competitors. So how does it do you within a couple minutes put in your website and the website of some of your competitors if you know them and say, how do I stand out from the crowd? What is my unique selling proposition? What are some of those things that I can tweak in my business in order to make me stand out? Now, previously, that would have taken someone hours, weeks to gather this type of data. But by using this simple prompt, we have it within a couple of minutes.
Okay. Uh, Talk about scaling a business.
Yeah,
And
I take my clients through kind of a three-part process. And the first piece is simplifying your business. So if you think about getting to that road to your first million, a lot of my clients are still in that six-figure mark and they're trying to scale up to seven figures. So what I want them to do is really establish what their brand is. So simplify the business. What is that thing that if you're going out to your customers and they're referring you to others, they can say, I can come to you for X. So if you have a financial operations business, you're the financial advisor, people know you for that. Then I want to make sure that you are putting some of those operational processes in place to make sure you're doing the same thing over and over. You're able to create those results fairly easily, and you're able to get to a point where you have sustainable growth. So during this time, you start taking off some of those hats and you're adding different team members. So it may be a virtual assistant, it may be someone that comes in and does your marketing or whatever it is in your business, right? So you start taking off some of those hats so that you can start to become the face of the business and really focus on growing strategically. Then when we get to scaling, at this point, you're really able to start building out your team. So now you have other service providers that are trained to do what you do. And now when you have a customer come in, it's not just you servicing them, you have team members that can also be brought on to do that. And that's a quick way for you to start to scale. The other way would be to start adding onto your portfolio of services.
yeah. So what you're saying is, what I'm hearing is too many owners do too much themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's,
Absolutely. And a lot of that comes from the fact that when you start the business, you're limited on resources, right? You may be the only person, so you have to wear all the hats.
yeah. And it is tough to outgrow that. I've seen that when we help companies that are going to sell, is that, right up in the top three things is owner dependency. And
Mhm.
business buyers of all types and sizes will look at that and say, how do we replace that person? What are they doing? And
Right.
if they're the chief designer or the only one who can do complicated bids, or, you can fill in the blank for a lot of things, uh, then, their value's less, or they're going to sell the business and have to stay on as an employee longer.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So, uh, how do you work with people? I mean, is it you said you'd have clients in 30 countries and you work with a lot of different people. So is it project work? Is it you're on a monthly retainer where, they just access you for their smarts?
Mhm.
How how do you typically work with someone? And especially you said your companies are, a lot of them are going towards their first million in sales. Is
Mhm.
They often can't afford the this, the high priced advisor.
Right. And so that's where a fractional CEO or COO or whatever comes into play, right? And a lot of times they don't actually need it in those early stages. If you're just scaling up to seven figures, you don't necessarily need a full-time COO. So they may contract with me on a part-time, think of it as a retainer or a subscription model where I support the business for a set number of hours. And that's coming in, and maybe I'm managing a couple of their projects. I'm helping out with their strategic plan, or we pick certain things that we may do together. And I'll have my hours, 10 hours a month, 20, 30, 40 hours per month. That's one way that I work with them. And then the other main way is through project based. So they hire me to come on and do a specific task in the business. Now, that could look like, let me just focus on your processes and make sure everything is standardized. We have the standard operating procedures, and then train the team on how to use it. So put those systems and structures in place. It could be something with working with their HR team, finding those new roles as this person, as the CEO, steps into what I call their CEO energy and away from that owner operator mentality and operating structure. So project based, retainer based are the two main ways.
Okay. So let's say you come into a situation and you're in a company and you're talking about KPIs and changing processes and all that, and you realize they're not very good at tracking a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things. Do you partner with a CFO type? Uh, how do
I
you
do.
get that part done? Because the, first thing that ever comes up with anyone in my industry, M&A, is, oh, are the financial systems solid and are the financial statements accurate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it depends on what they need, what needs to be tracked and what their main goal is in the business. But I am really big on your KPIs and understand, well, what are your targets? What is your baseline? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to go through an analysis with them, right? I'm going to assess where they are in their business. And I do have what I call the operations goldmine framework, which is an 8-part business structure where we look at all of your operations and your KPIs are in there. So I have multiple KPIs that people may track. And if we do need to bring on another professional, such as your CFO, I'm going to work with that person as well to understand, well, what is it that you need? What do we need to track? And make sure that we put a system in place to track that.
Yeah, I would say that's, I've learned many years ago that's very important. Had a client, I brought in a CFO type with me, and he was able to set up a system of management reports that took the information, in this case from QuickBooks,
Mm-hmm.
and they could export it into a report. And, this is before AI.
Mm-hmm.
It gave them it gave them meaningful information instead of a line item on a P&L or balance sheet.
Good.
And
Yeah.
found that very important to companies. So, so you've talked a lot about processes and, operations and the people. Um, what gets in the way, besides the owner not delegating? What gets in the way of companies not growing the way they would like to grow?
Chasing the shiny object One of the gifts and curses of being an entrepreneur is that you are blessed with a lot of ideas. Right? You go to sleep thinking about things, you wake up thinking about things, and it's so easy to get distracted and want to try out that new idea. So I would say that one is chasing the shiny objects. The other thing is not being clear with your team members on what it is you're trying to do, right? So very clearly articulating, well, what is the vision? What's the process? And not just expecting you to say one line and your team know exactly what you mean by that, right? So stay away from the shiny objects, commit to focusing on one or two things, and then also be very clear with your team on the direction that you're headed in. And if you change your mind, that's fine, but be clear and communicate.
Okay. Uh, do you find most of your clients are more into the services or product, and that could be the shiny object? There's always another shiny object they could be doing for clients, or do they go the other way and they don't have the product or service down, but yet they're out there selling more than their team can handle?
I think it's more of the chasing after the different service. Um, a lot of my clients, so it's a little bit of both. My clients are very agile in terms of the services they can provide because they can do a lot. And so I have had a couple of clients, they get on a consult call with a prospect, and the prospect says, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. And they're like, yeah, I can do it, but I need it next week. And so while the client knows how to do it, they have the capability to do it. Can they do it that fast? No. So then it becomes a scramble to get it done. But the other thing is just, chasing the different services and saying just because I can, I should. And really it's commit to the one or two things till you get it down pat before moving on.
Okay. How long's your typical engagement with someone? Are we talking a quarter, a year, couple years?
Well, if I'm doing subscription services, it has gone on for several years in some cases.
Okay.
Right? I do start off with at least a 3 month package, and then from there we can decide how much longer we want to stay together. But at least three months.
Yeah. Any special industries you like, or maybe I should say any you don't like to work with?
You know what? I haven't found one I don't like to work with. I've worked with so many industries from healthcare to federal government, um, IT and transportation. And one of the things I like about operations, you don't necessarily have to be industry specific. What I do can apply anywhere.
Yeah. Do you get involved
It's
in
about the
manufacturing at
people that
all?
I work with.
Do you get involved in manufacturing?
One of my transportation clients can be considered manufacturing. They create things in the automotive industry, but I haven't per se been in a manufacturing business, like a traditional manufacturing business.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's mostly services.
Mostly services,
So you're
yes.
not chasing the shiny object of manufacturing.
No, I've heard a lot about the industry, and it's been it's been fun.
Yeah. Well, what else? You want to, tell us any more stories, any more mistakes that owners make that holds them back?
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, it's
Sure.
fascinating to hear
I
about
would
what you've
say
done.
not looking at your data and not looking at what is going on in the industry. So, right now, one of the things that we're dealing with are all the changes, how politics can impact your industry.
Hmm.
Now, if you've been, depending on what you're doing, if you've been following things, this is not new. For example, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion is a big one. I spent a lot of time in that space. Well, this past week, DEI has been in a big uproar, but if you look back, it's been changing for the last 2 years,
Yeah.
right? And so if you were a service provider that heavily focused on DEI, you needed to start pivoting in your business to make sure that you are keeping up and staying ahead of the curve so that you don't lose your business. So I would say that that's one of the biggest things. The clues are out there, and you need to be agile and know when to walk away, even if it is the thing that you're known for the most. a lot of times there's other tools in your toolkit that you can lean on.
Okay. Um, when you talk about data and not paying attention to it, is this internal data, external, all what really stands out to if you had a business owner right now that says, I'm doing $1 million, I need to get to two or three, uh, what data would, without considering the industry, I
Mhm.
mean, are we looking at internal reporting and numbers? Are we looking at external? What's more important?
I would look at internally, and I would look at the services that you're providing and what is being requested. What are you selling more of? Right. So if you are, let's just, I'll stick with HR. If you are an HR company and you provide recruiting, you provide HR strategy, and you provide HR consulting. And if you look at the data over, let's just say the last year, out of those three categories, which one are you selling more of? Lean into that more. And then also look at what your clients are asking for and how the environment is shifting in their needs and go after that. So you want to always be a solution provider. That is going to be the way that they can scale up or at least be able to meet the market where it is, just by looking at the data. If again, if you're selling more of one thing and they're asking for that same thing, lean into that more.
What I just heard is build on your strengths.
Absolutely. Yeah, build on your strengths, your zone of
Okay.
genius.
So, Tanya, how do people get hold of you?
You can go to my website. It is harmonyconsultinggroup.org,
Okay.
and you can reach me there. And then I also have a free Facebook community, the Harmony Ops Collective. So you can just find me facebook.groups/Harmony Ops. And in that community, I am working with owner operators or other people that are looking to get into the operation side of the house and giving them tools and tricks and community to really build out their operation skills.
Okay. So is that Facebook group is that a subscription model? Is it no charge?
This one is free, and eventually there will be a more in-depth subscription model where I do a lot of teaching.
Okay. All right. Sounds very interesting. Just give me let's give the audience a little insights into that Facebook group. So if someone's got a business and they say, I got two people, we're doing X dollars, we want to do better. We know we could be more efficient. What do they get out of that group?
They are going to really understand how do you focus on the operation side of the house. They are going to get some advice on how do you streamline, how do you learn to scale up, and how do you build a sustainable business so that you are not wearing all the hats and burning yourself out. You're also going to get some templates as well. One of the things that I have is a checklist. I have different models in there where you can kind of forecast what you're selling. So you're tracking it all the way down to the week. So if you have a goal of making $500,000 this year, great. What does that look like across all of your products or services? How many do you need to sell each quarter, each month? And we go from there. I can get
Okay.
really detailed and really nerdy about those things. So we'll do that. And then we'll also host some classes with people as well. So I can kind of work alongside you to solve your problems.
Okay. Final question for me, maybe you want other things that you want to share is you're working a lot of small business and a fractional that does have its size range. When
Mhm.
does a when does a fractional COO fade out and company typically says, yeah, we really need someone in here every day.
Yeah, I would say probably about the $2 million or more mark. And that's really when you are generating so much business that you need some, and you have a lot of team members, you have a need for a fractional CEO to come in. So it can happen sooner depending on what you have that person doing. Like I said before, I was heavily involved in the business development side. That can take up a lot of time. So in that case, I would say bring me on as as a full-time person. And then what I would do if I'm helping you transition from fractional to full-time is I would be involved in the hiring of my replacement essentially, and then transitioning them on to make sure that there is a smooth transition. They understand what we put in place and can kind of pick up where I left off, so that CEO doesn't feel like they are taking a few steps back by having to train someone else.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking a higher number because I see a lot of fractional COO types in manufacturing and distribution, and obviously the margins are different. The margins in service are a lot higher, so you get to that point of more people, more
Yes.
moving parts, a lot quicker sales wise than you do if you're making a widget.
Yes. Right, because your salaries are higher on the service side, especially in the consulting side. Your salaries are higher. It's less people, but you can bring in higher profits, and then you would need more of that operations type to kind of help manage.
Yeah. So any final thoughts?
Um, I would just say pay attention to what's going on out there in the market. Understand that it's usually good to bring on a fractional COO or a fractional executive sooner than you think. And that allows you as a CEO or that visionary to kind of stay in your zone of genius, right?
Okay.
So lean on the experience and the expertise of that person to grow your business.
All right. Well, this has been Latanya Roberts. She is a fractional COO, works internationally, based out of Atlanta, with a lot of service businesses, smaller service businesses, which obviously fits the fractional model. Her contact information will be in the show notes. So if so inclined, please reach out to her. And we thank you for being here, Latanya.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Okay, this is the Getting the Deal Done podcast. Thank you for listening.